Well, good afternoon, and welcome everyone to this crucial breakout. Our session is on attracting and retaining Guard and Reserve members. I'm David May. I'm the Director of Guard and Reserve Partnerships with Vet Jobs. I'm also a veteran myself, 13 years of active duty Air Force and about 17 years of full-time Guard service. And I'm really privileged to be the moderator today at this event. Thank you to Nick and Meg and Vet Indexes for this opportunity. I know everyone on the panel really appreciates it. So we spent a lot of time today talking about the immense value that veterans bring to the civilian workforce. And I think that the Guard and Reserve represents a unique high-value talent pool that really needs its own specialized strategy. These are employees who are not only balancing a civilian career as well as a military career. They're some of the most capable, busiest people you'll ever meet, and they need their own sort of treatment to make sure that they're getting the right support from both sides of the proposition as we share the talent between the military and whatever their civilian capacity is. So the challenge then isn't whether we want to hire. If you've ever been to an ESGR event, you know that employers that have figured out how great Guard and Reserve members are as employees, you know that they can't get enough. The real challenge is effectively tailoring our recruitment processes and our retention programs to make sure that they're supported appropriately so they're able to sustain their military career and the career that they have alongside with that. So to help us navigate these complexities, I'm honored to have an amazing panel of experts today. And we'll get started by having each of them introduce themselves and just say a little bit about how they're connected to this topic on a day-to-day basis. Celia, let's start with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Celia Croft. I am the Military Programs Manager for U.S. Foods. I have been with U.S. Foods since January, so I am new to the U.S. Foods world, but I am not new to the military recruiting world. My career spans about 10 years, specifically dedicated to building out recruiting programs as it relates to the military community. So work really closely with the Guard and Reserve units across the U.S. to make sure that they've got viable employment opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you, Celia. TJ?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is TJ Martin. I'm currently the Director of Strategic Talent Initiatives for USIC, United States Infrastructure Company. We're the largest provider of underground damage prevention through underground utility locating in North America. So I likewise have a military background. I served a total of 26 years and retired in August of 2022. So I've been employed with USIC for about 3 years and was hired initially to build out our military recruiting strategy. And so like Celia, we have employees through 45 of the lower 48 states, and being able to work with those guards and areas with the SGR to try and attract that talent has been a huge win for our company.
Great, thank you. And Kelly, over to you.
Thank you very much, sir. My name is Kelly French, and I'm a Marine, and I manage our veteran recruiting programs here at United Rentals, our DoD Skill Bridge program, and I manage our veteran recruiting calendar that keeps us out there in front of the troops, soldiers, and sailors across the country. We are the largest construction and industrial rental equipment company in the world. So you can well imagine a lot of the people, a lot of different MOSs coming out of the Guard and Reserve fit really well with our organization. So it's just kind of a natural for us. Thank you.
That's great. So as I said, clearly we're in great hands with this panel, and we'll get right into some questions. Before we do that, I do have the Q&A window open, so if you're listening to us and you have a question, go ahead and populate that, and I'll work that in as the panel discusses these items. I'd like to break up our topic into first talking about attracting Guard and Reserve, and then after we've discussed that, we'll get into the retention side of it. So TJ, you just mentioned you've got a strategy that you helped develop. Could you start us off talking about some of the challenges, but also maybe some of the successes and elements of that strategy that have helped you with attracting Guard and Reserve members?
Yeah, thanks, David. So I'll tell you that I think the first thing that I noticed coming into this was identifying Garden Reserve members, because most of our onboarding HR systems, things like that, the only question they ask is the VEVRA equal employment opportunity question, which is, do you fit one of these categories of a protected veteran? And in many cases, currently serving Guard and Reserve members may not meet that specific requirement. So an early adaptation to help draw more folks in was to be able to ask additional questions in that initial screening. Have you ever been a member of the armed forces? And then if so, that creates another drop-down tree of which branch, so on and so forth. So that we can really accurately identify those candidates and be able to support them appropriately. We initially started with some very local partnerships with National Guard and Reserve units in our immediate area. So our corporate headquarters is Indianapolis. We were able to kind of grow out from there, right? The nearby states, Ohio, Kentucky, Illinois. And then as that progressed, we were able to take advantage of the big network for ESGR, like ESGR National, not just within our state. And then some of the other organizations that may not be as well known, like P3 or the Public-Private Partnership, which is an Army Reserve specific hiring platform. And then the NAUGUS and ANGUS, so the National Guard Association of the United States and Enlisted Association for the National Guard of the United States. All of those are organizations that give you access, and we found pretty decent access to numerous Guard and Reserve members. And then in order to make it more attractive, we had to recognize some of our internal policies and make ourselves more attractive. So going beyond that basic youth SARA that we're all required to provide, we were able to pass a policy within our HR that allows for paid military leave. Because having worked with a lot of Guard and Reserve in the past, and you folks know this, if you're an hourly employee and you're in that middle of a biweekly pay cycle, then you get ordered to annual training. Well, you're not going to see that annual training paycheck for usually 30 to 40 days. Finance, DFAS processes, which leaves you in this, backlog of pay. And so we are able to provide up to 80 hours of paid military leave for every one of our employees. And so that policy helped us make ourselves as an industry a little more attractive when talking to those leaders at NAUGUS, ANGUS, and ESGR. And then I think the last most important thing that we did was really build out our service member resource group or an employee resource group dedicated toward our veterans. And with veterans, we include all military connected. So that's our Guard, Reserve, military spouses, people who may not qualify, quote unquote, with that 180 days of active duty status under the veteran title. We made sure we were all inclusive, and it's open to every employee so they can all learn more about what's important, what's going on in veteran affairs, what's going on with certain states and mobilizations, things like that. We keep everybody kind of tied in and hopefully building dialogue back and forth. So those were some early steps, identified areas that we were able to make a lot of progress very quickly. So there you go.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You hit on a lot there. Some of my favorite topics, P3O being one of them, as well as ESGR. I'm sure we'll get into those as we progress here. But before we do that, let's hear what Celia and Kelly have to add to that. Celia, you want to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are still in the very beginning stages here at US Foods on developing out our Guard and Reserve specific programs. As I mentioned, I just started here in January. So we are kind of in that discovery phase that TJ mentioned, he went through when he first started. So we have very strong ambitions to get to where TJ will be one day. But right now we are really focusing on the partnerships that we have not only with P3, but also with ESGR, working really closely with them. We have not signed the statement of support yet, just because the calendars and scheduling and alignments and things like that. But we do anticipate doing that in December, so by the end of this year. But we're really focusing on identifying our largest needs within our organization from a succession plan perspective, and then working with the various Guard and Reserve units across the U.S. on identifying where those MOSs are held in each state, and then identifying where our locations are in proximity to those reserve stations. So, those locations, to make sure that not going to be an inconvenient commute, for those individuals to get to us. And then we've developed specialized onboarding for these individuals. That's kind of in conjunction with our SkillBridge program as well. So kind of piggybacking off of that and making sure that the individuals that we are targeting, that we are talking to, during those drill weekends and therefore is aligned to what they're wanting to do, but also is hitting a business need for us as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Kelly, what are your additional thoughts?
Well, the great part about going last on this, David, is everything they said. And no, seriously, we have a terrific ESGR organization, several different ESGRs and employee support groups, actually. And ours is very strong. We have 3,000 veterans here at the company, and a lot of buy-in from our senior leadership. We have a Charlie Mike call. We call it, continuing the mission, Charlie Mike, every month. And we have a lot of our leadership shows up on these calls, our branch managers, district managers, again, right up to the vice president level, who support, the things that we're doing, and having guests from, the Veterans Administration. We had an attorney out of New York that represents veterans pursuing claims against the Veterans Association last month. That was super informative. So we try to, it's a little bit more than, jelly donuts and coffee once a month on the telephone, so we're trying to bring meaningful, information that people can share. We have a lot of retired veterans in the company. A lot of Guard and Reserve that don't necessarily know how to take advantage of our benefits and our breadth benefits here at the company. So it's a great venue for them to have a discussion. But our ESGR is very strong. We network with, there's 132 active military bases in North America. There's over 3,000 Guard and Reserve and armories across the U.S. It's a Herculean effort to try to contact all of them. So, kind of like Cecilia, we started out looking at where are our locations, what locations are close to us, and started networking with those local branches and local bases and armories and locations. And then, of course, they all have like social network, Facebook that you can get hooked onto, and other things like that. And they support the Guard and Reserve has yellow ribbon events, and you can go out and meet all the members of the Guard and Reserve on their weekend calls for duty and support them in that way. Plus, all the wounded warrior organizations, Work for Warriors, Vet Jobs, just there's so many out there that we can network and work with, and they're my favorite. They're free. So build yourself up a network, that you can leverage at your company, and hit them often. They get an email from us every Monday with all of our open jobs and positions, and some recruiting tips and information and insights that we hope that help. But and participate, especially if you're new and getting established. There's a lot of awards out there that you can participate in, like military friendly, DoD medallion awards, American Legion. I mean, every state has a veteran organization that you can hook into and participate You may not win an award, but you always get recognition. And it's giving that recognition and having your ability to tell your story is what it's all about. It's what we're here for. It's how do we make that connection, right? And so if you can get that part and you have a good story, then you're going to be attractive to the Guard and Reserve and active duty and spouses. So I think, and there's a lot more that we can speak about this, more and more, but I know that we have other topics. So let's, if you'd like, we could move on unless you have any questions.
So that's fantastic. So much good information, and I've just learned a lot here myself in the last 10 minutes. Let me just make a couple comments, and we do actually have a couple questions in the chat box I'll get to, but you all mentioned P3 or P3O. For the audience that might not know what that is, it's a public-private partnership with the Army Reserve. Vet Jobs provides the software to that organization. They do great things with their recruit specialists, and they're an absolute an example to look to as to how everything gets integrated. So thank you for all your interactions with that. We have a question about tools that identify MOSs or AFSCs by each state and installation. And it sounds like all of you are tracking this and have already come up with an approach to address that. So I'll put that back out to the group. But April has a question along those lines. Is there a good tool to turn to for MOS or AFSC identification at right down to the installation level? Who'd like to jump in there?
I can. Military.com, or you could go to unitedrentals.com and go to our military page, and there is a translator for you. And not only would you take the translator with all the MOSs in it, but we fed it in actually to how they relate to our specific positions. So it's a it's a very specific tool that everybody could leverage. And I'm sure the other companies have something similar.
Yep, absolutely. TJ or Celia, anything else to jump in on? Yeah, TJ, go ahead.
I think to answer the question that I think she's asking, I have not found a simple way to say, Indiana has X number of infantrymen, MPs, blah, 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 whatever's in their arsenal within the state via Guard, via Reserve. I do know that the Army Reserve does have a units page. You can look that up, United States Army Reserve units, and then you can put in your location. It'll kind of give you the broad scope. So if it's a transportation unit, they're going to have more transportation MOSs, things that run along that lines. But as far as a simple tool to say, hey, X number of field artillerymen, X number of infantrymen, X number of, engineers, et cetera, I haven't found one. So to the lady asking the question, I'd love to find one too.
There's your $1 million idea, TJ, right there.
If only I had the time.
Do it for active duty too.
We've got another question from Brian Copes in Indiana. He's the ESGR vice chair there. Thank you for doing that, Brian. That's awesome. As well as the chief of staff. He says, we're struggling to connect with employers who employ or want to employ reserve component members. And I can address that right off the bat. All three of the employers of our panel members are registered with Vet Jobs. We have over 11,000 employers that are registered with us, and that gets your jobs in front of our candidate base, which is enormous. We register between 500 and 1,000 military affiliated candidates every week, and we've placed 112,000 military affiliated people in jobs over our history. So, and we work very closely with ESGR. We love ESGR. I'm working on a even stronger collaboration with Navy Captain Best and CSM of the Army retired John Sampa. We're going to try to work together more. But at those ESGR events, you can certainly suggest that they register with Vet Jobs and other like organizations, and that'll get your jobs in front of what I think is your target audience, which is this incredible pool of talent that we're talking about. So let me just look at what we do have one more question here from Jason. And I tell you what, while I read that question, let's go ahead and jump off on the retention topic before we run out of time. So again, I'll throw this to the panel. Let's talk about some of your challenges or successes in terms of approaching retention for the Guard and Reserve members that you get into your organization. Who would like to start?
I can start. So one of the biggest things that I've experienced, not necessarily at US Foods, just throughout my career, doing and working in military programs, is there are some misconceptions, there are stereotypes, an unconscious bias, if you will, when it comes to hiring managers that weren't in the military, have no connections to the military, weren't in the Guard and Reserve, they don't know anyone in the Guard or Reserve. So I do think that there is an education piece. So if an organization is looking at exploring these options or wanting to expand upon them, there's definitely an education piece that needs to take place, because if you're bringing someone in and they're not familiar with the world that individual comes from, or their level of experience, or how that experience translates, or what they can bring to the organization, there is going to be, a cultural difference and culture shock, if you will. So, really just setting the individual up for success by being a military ready company, is how I like to refer to it, is very important, and making sure that the team that this individual or individuals are going to be working with fully understand the level and skill set that individual is bringing to the organization. And the language is different, right? So if someone you could be saying the exact same thing using different words, when it comes to military and civilian. So there's really an education and kind of like a debunking stereotypes piece that I think is very important, kind of going down this road as far as implementing or wanting to bring in more Guard and Reserve and military in general.
Great. Thank you, Celia. TJ, did you have anything to add onto that on the retention front?
I'll be real brief. So I think one of the, I won't say easiest, but one of the least expensive things that you can do to build a culture to build retention is to build a culture of recognition and inclusion, right? And this goes for all your military. So celebrate those, key observance days, whether it's Armed Forces Day, Veterans Day, the Reserve birthday, the Guard birthday, December 13th, and include your service members in those internal communication and spotlight that. Like, hey, we're recognizing these individuals for their blah, blah, blah on the Army birthday, Marine Corps birthday, etc., to help reinforce that sense of belonging and purpose. Because when you have belonging and purpose, those of us that served in the military know that's part of it, right? Like, we love that belonging, we love the purpose, we love, and so it helps you buy into the mission, whatever that mission is, of your organization. And I think that genuinely helps with retention as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. Kelly?
Well, as far as retention goes, we've kind of developed some programs that we think are very successful. In addition to our ESGR, we have, like, especially for the Guard and Reserve, there's a pay match program for them. So if they're, in a job here working as a trade professional, and they get called to duty because they're in the Guard, but they receive much less pay. We do a pay match guarantee for them up to a year during their deployment. So I think that's a huge attraction for the benefit for the Guard and Reserve members. Also, to TJ earlier mentioned that their leave during the 2 weeks of training is that there absolutely is not accounted against them during their vacation. If they are deployed, we have some amazing care package programs already built up here at the company. They have some special family support and networking that we do. We actually have 22 people deployed right now. Everybody in the military here has special recognition on their signatures, their clothing. If you drive a truck for us, you have a special logo on your truck. So we make sure, they're a part of they know and are recognized and appreciated as a part of the team. We have a special tool program. Hey, we know, we've been there. They don't send us home with a box of tools when we get out. So when they join the company, we recognize that, and we provide them with a complete set of tools and a toolbox to set them up for success if they come into that type of a role. There's, tuition reimbursement. They don't have to burn their GI Bill with us. We have our own internal university. And we know that the technology is changing on equipment as fast as it is on a computer. So our people have to stay relevant and train continuously. And there's some other things we do, at the branch level, our location level, where we support local fisher houses and contribute back into the community and do things like that. And I'm sure some of the other companies do too. That's what I have on that. Thank you, David.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I just want to stop and acknowledge how great it is that all of you do extra things for these people. I heard about it all the time, as TAG and ATAG in Wisconsin. I heard about it from service members. I heard about it from employees, but the extra pay, balancing out the differences, the differential pay, the support to families during deployments. Those are all extra things that you don't have to do according to the law, but so many employers do it, and it makes a huge difference. And when I would talk to ESGR groups, primarily of employers, I would say, we're sharing talent, but we're also sharing the contribution to national security, because this full employment, good employment for Guard and Reserve members drives readiness, it drives retention, hopefully on both sides, but it also drives resilience. If you have a good job, all other challenges that a service member might be facing are much more manageable. So this is, I feel like I'm back in the ESGR positive vibe again, but it's really inspiring, and I'm just super grateful for that. Jason brought up a really interesting point here in terms of outreach with local units in your area where you can make connections to find Guard members who might want to work in your organization. He's become an honorary commander in one of the units. So this is really an Air Force type program where there's a instruction and everything that covers it, but you can be invited in and be made an honorary commander of a wing, a group, however you want to do it. In my home state of Wisconsin, we did exactly that. And that creates that direct connection because it's going to be someone in the community, a business leader in the community, someone in government, somewhere, somebody that's out there doing great things. Another corollary opportunity is community councils. A lot of military units, especially in the Guard, have community councils that meet on a regular basis. They're very often working alongside the local chambers, but they're going to be business leaders and they're going to be business owners. And it's another a key tie-in just to connect Guard and Reserve members and units to the community that's around them. So I appreciate Jason bringing that up. So as we kind of get down to our last 10, 11 minutes here before we wrap up, I know we've talked a lot about current initiatives that you've been working on or already implementing. Do you have any case studies or examples, good or bad, of places where your efforts really just hit the mark? Do you have any cases or employees that come to mind where, hey, this really worked out, or hey, something over here didn't work quite right, but we learned from it and here's where we are now? Any thoughts like that come to mind for anybody?
I'll tell one. So we started a mentoring program, and we tried to do it only with veterans on veterans. Well, veterans already know how to be veterans. So it was much better idea to pair them up with a civilian counterpart to try to help them, navigate that part better, or even better, have two mentors. Have a veteran mentor and a civilian mentor, so you get that different optic on that thing that you're trying to find out about or figure out. So that was one of the things that we discovered when we were creating. It's called Pathfinder here at United Rentals, our mentorship program. But that was an early lesson for us.
That's a great point, and I'm going through a little bit of that at Vet Jobs. We're all military affiliated, but some of the military spouses, and they're helping me transition from 30 years of doing it this way to, yep, things are a little different over here. So I totally get what you're saying. That's a great example. Celia or TJ?
So I won't name any names, but I would just say, if you're going to start a military recruiting program or you're going to grow your military recruiting program, cautious of organizations that seem to charge really high amounts of money, large fees, right? Nothing's entirely free, but there are a lot of organizations out there that you can partner with, like a Vet Jobs, maybe even Hiring Our Heroes. That bang for your buck is genuinely better than a single event pay to play opportunity. No names mentioned. Just be cautious of those.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I've only been with Vet Jobs for a few months, but I would say if somebody's got a price tag on what they're offering you right up front, to be a little suspicious, because there are so many great organizations out there that are doing amazing work with largely donated funds. I was that guy that paid $130 to have somebody do my resume a year ago before I knew what was out there available out there for free. And I'm sure I'd get much better support at my own organization or elsewhere. But this is a type of support that people believe in, and it's well resourced. You probably don't need to be paying for it.
Yeah.
Celia, anything to add on that front?
Yeah, I think as organizations are exploring this, as far as military programs, both active duty, Guard and Reserve, and military spouses, right? You want to think of the whole community as the community as a whole. Really understand and know your why. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because it's the right thing to do, or are you doing it because there is truly a need and a passion behind it, right? And what does that business need? So, one of the very first things that I've done, I've now launched 3 very large scale military programs. So definitely not unfamiliar to this, but you don't want to boil the ocean, right? The military community is, very vast, but very small at the same time. So you really want to be targeted. You want to have a strategic approach to it and expand over time. So if you can look at, what does your upcoming turnover look like? What does your, retention or retirements look like over the next, 2 to 5 years? How are you going to bring people in and get them trained up to take over those positions? Getting ahead of any type of attrition or turnover, I think, is really important. So I partner very, very closely with our labor planning teams as well, and looking at historical trends. And we do sometimes hire over approved headcount because we know there's going to be turnover in certain locations. So there's very strategic ways to implement military programs to get the business buy-in, which is very important, because without that, the programs are not going to go anywhere. You can recruit from the military community all day, but if you can't keep them, from a business perspective, it's not going to be worth the time and effort that you put into it.
Yeah, those are great points, and we haven't talked a lot about military spouses or dependents, but that's another very rich pool of talent, and we certainly don't overlook it. But that's also a key part to retaining the military member in the service. If both spouses want a job, need a job, and they're both fully employed, that creates a lot of stability. It's also great for the employer, and you've got tie-ins there to all the same things you're generally going to find in the service member, the discipline, leadership skills, all that. Kelly, yes.
Yes, thank you, David. We actually have 1,700 locations in North America, and we very much value keeping our employees, the intellectual capital that they gain working here can never be replaced. And if you're a military spouse, your husband's going to get, or your significant other is going to get PCSed at some point during your career. We get it. There's not I've done it. I've looked. We have locations near all 132 active duty military bases in the U.S. We have locations. People have life-changing situations. Mom needs extra care. I want to move next to be close to my son in college. We have an opportunity with 1,700 locations for you to make those kinds of moves. If there's you're in San Diego and you get, sent to Norfolk, I have 12 locations in Norfolk that you could potentially relocate to rather than have to restart your career every time your spouse relocates. And we get it, and we value these military spouses and try to make every opportunity we can to allow them to transfer into those opportunities.
Yeah, amen. That's great stuff. We're down to our last 3 minutes, so let's do this. Let's go around the panel for just maybe 45 seconds of a closing thought, just to wrap up our topic. This has been an amazing panel. So before we get the hook, just some final wrap-up thoughts. Let's start with we'll go TJ, Celia, and Kelly, and then back to me to call it good. So TJ, what are your final thoughts?
If you have a military recruiting program, great. If you have not, the best time to start one is yesterday. And for those of you that have one, like we have, we continue to try and learn and develop best practices. And I'll tell you, I think anybody, this business, the military recruiting business, we're happy to share what we've learned, what worked, what didn't work, things like that with, our peers in other industries. So yeah, happy to help anywhere I can.
Thank you, TJ. Celia?
Yeah, definitely want to echo what TJ said. What works at US Foods might not work, for TJ or Kelly, right? So, but we can always bounce ideas off of each other, benchmark. Candidates might be a better fit for me than they are for TJ, and vice versa. So, always keeping your network open is huge in my book. I still work with previous employers and sending candidates their way. They do the same with me. The goal is to get our military community employed. So whether that's with me or another organization, as long as they've got a paycheck coming in and they're able to support their families, that's what I care about. So
awesome.
Heard people mention that they spend a lot of money going to events. Why? Contact your local TAP office at the local bases. Contact those ESGR. Contact their local reserve units. They're having those free yellow ribbon events. You should not be paying to go. And I also recommend that you take your vets. Send your vets to those events. Vets talk to vets. Talent recognizes talent. And lastly, engage, engage, engage.
And Nick, you gave me a great panel here. Hopefully I got 30 seconds left. If you're an employer and you haven't signed a statement of support with ESGR, please consider doing that. If you want to get your jobs in front of this vast talent pool, please register with Vet Jobs or one of the other organizations out there. And thank you again so much for what you do for our Guard and Reserve members and their families in terms of employment and making it work for them to stay in uniform and work for you as well. Nick, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.